It always comes to this. More nice Morning guys, back again to do another tattoo progress update today. Where I last left off, I had updated my forehead, little touch up in here. As you can see, there's a lot less of the pink now. There's just a little bit of a pinky tinge to it, much like the roses on my head, which were bright red and muted with opaques and white. Did the same thing over here. These were very, very red. So again, just more proof of concept. Shouldn't need to still be, saying this all the time, but there's still so many people out here who don't believe that you can do anything like this, that you're gonna, if you're watching this channel, it's gonna be a constant beat. It's gonna be a constant thing that I'm reminding people about. You can cover color with anything you want, any other color you want. You can cover black with whatever color you want. And this episode is going to be a lot about a huge victory on that front. But before I get into that, so yeah, obviously, once again, right on that. There's no argument. I was just right. Anyone who claims otherwise is akin to a flat earther at this point. I also updated the chest piece. I did a big full pass over it. That was the 26th session on it. Terry and I completely redid it this time, and all of the colors healed great, just like I knew they would. Anytime you do color over black, if you come back into it a year later, all the color that you put in there, if you hit it again, it will be more vibrant. And now you could never tell that this was done over black as opposed to regular skin. And the only reason you could is because I have other areas of me that are clearly still black. I don't think, if the rest of this sleeve, for example, was colored similarly to this one, there would be any argument about it. But yeah, I like the overall clarity of this piece a lot more now. And going forward, I think it's going to be a better part of this suit. I'm not at this time expecting doing any more work with it. I would consider this, for the most part, finished now. The only part of this tattoo that I think could use any more love at all would be in the brain here, but I still haven't figured out what to do with that, so it will stay as is for now. I may at some point extend this black haloing a bit more to give it a little more depth, but I'm still not decided on that at this point, so that's a maybe one day type thing. Had another session with Rick. We did this big chunk in here. Actually quite a bit of work. This was all darkened up again. Again, doing the impossible here. There's just so much little detail and tiny shit that we're doing with this sleeve that a normal sleeve would, even a color sleeve over black would take less time than this would most likely over negative space, let alone over black. There's untold amounts of detail in here, and so it has been an unreasonable, unrealistic pursuit, and that's what we set out for. I said at the beginning that this sleeve would take 60 to 80 sessions. I believe it would probably take somewhere between 30 to 40 sessions on negative space, just to give you a realistic ballpark. That said, if I was working with a younger artist with more stamina and more drive for the art form, I think this sleeve could be done in about half the time. It would still be a long undertaking. I've said before, I think that if I had done this exact same layout with this much detail with Terry, well, first off, I don't think Terry had the imagination to do the detail that I wanted. But if I did do that with Terry, with his work ethic, I think we would have done it in between 35 and 40 sessions. It still would have been a lot of work. But it would have been a lot less work. So just as a big upfront for the people who always insinuate that I'm working with some amazing artists, I do think these guys are talented, but anyone that can saturate can do this work, as has been proven recently. but again, I'm going to get into that in a minute. There's no special talent to doing work over black. If you are a cover-up artist, you might already know some of these tricks, but basically anyone is capable of doing this if they can saturate tattoo ink. We've had several apprentices at the shop here do this work, and Terry, who's done like at least 50% of my work over the last couple of years, was a 2-year apprentice when he started working on me, and he had no special skill set. We don't have magic ink. It just works. It's not even complicated. As long as you listen, which is the hardest part because so many tattooers have made their minds up on a foundation of nonsense and fairy tales and superstition, that listening to anything new and anything true, like any actual results, won't instruct them because their head is lodged squarely up their ass. Now, what I'm going to talk about next here is a couple friends of mine. First off, Phil Good Tattoo, who I featured on the show. He started small with white and black on his partner, and it healed great. And now he's moving on to doing full sleeves. So he did one of these, and it healed great. Again, big up front, he used white and black on black, which is what I've been barking about on this channel for years. And yet I still have people sending me white line style tattoos. It's because their artist they don't want to learn. They think, oh, well, my black is as black as it gets. No, it's not, asshole. Black on black is the way ahead for all color on black projects and all white on black projects. I've been saying this since the start. It all begins with fresh black outlines and more black shading. You have to build the tattoo completely. All negative space will work against you. It's just the way it is. You have to fill it all in. I don't know why people think that, first off, line style tattoos to begin with, when they're not filled in, they don't look finished. So I don't know why you would think that putting them on top of black would be any better when we already know that your result is going to be duller than it would be on negative space. I don't know who came up with this idea of doing these like chalkboard white on black projects, but it's not a good idea. It's from the start, it's not a good idea. I have seen some that looked kind of okay. That's the best you've got. Kind of okay. Whereas now we have people like Anthony Bennett, who I'm going to claim this as a victory personally as well. It's a victory for the industry, but for me it's like I spent years doing these things and being doubted and having people talk shit about me and claim that I'm bad for the industry and I'm giving people false hope and people shouldn't expect these results because I just probably have great skin or I'm working with some magician or something. Now we have people like Anthony Bennett, who, by the way, and I'm going to put it in here, cited me as inspiration for his color on black. He told me this in DMs recently. He thanked me for what I've done. This is still his project. He just listened to and observed results. You know what? There's probably a guy out there that's done a lot of this. Maybe you should see what he says about it. And maybe rather than thinking he's full of shit, that'll never work, maybe go, oh, but what if he isn't AI? What if this isn't all edited on? I wonder how he got to those results. Well, he said, straight up, you were right. You got to put the black back in. No fucking shit. I don't know why this has been such a hard pill for people to swallow. It's like this ego thing where, especially if the artist has done the blackout, they then think that they can't possibly do a blacker black or that it won't show up. And it's like, you're not understanding this. It's about like reframing the thing, right? There is no black that can't be covered. You could bring in a hood blackout sleeve to this shop. It looks bulletproof, silky smooth. You're like, oh yeah, that's super black. Fucking Sarah, my wife over there, is going to cover that. She could cover that already. Does not matter how black it is. I've seen this with my own eyes. Rick Peck's a fucking black. You go back and watch my old vlogs. I was fucking pitch black at one point. There is no too dark to cover. That's not a thing. It can all be covered. And if you do, then use the white as the light point, the lightest point of the tattoo, the high point or the negative space element of the tattoo. That's how you get results like what Anthony Bennett has got on this sleeve. So when I see this sleeve and it's healed, because he just posted it as of making this video, you know what? You don't see any tattooers walking back their stupidity. You don't even see any of the comments like, I'd like to see it in 600 years. Because those guys, they don't come back to check whether the work healed or not. And now that he's having healed results, those healed photos won't do as well. That's a proven fact. It's been the same case for me. The fresh stuff, it trends because people like to doubt it. They like to say, oh, it's not going to work. They don't like to admit they were wrong. I don't know why we have this in human nature where it's like people don't want to be wrong. They want to be right all the time. Me, personally, I like being wrong. I've been wrong about all kinds of things. I'm wrong all the time. I was wrong about a lot of what I thought about tattooing. And it's being a bigger person to go, oh, okay, this is actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's only a bad thing for your ego if you're married to your ideas. I've learned enough in life about, I've learned enough that I've been wrong in life to assume that I'm wrong now about something, It's like, and I kind of want to be too, because the idea is that you're always learning. But what I see in tattooing so often is people get into these plateaued mindsets and they do the same projects and the same work every fucking day. You can see it in their feeds. And like they like to curate their feed to facilitate a certain workload and work type where it's like, I only want to do these projects, so that's all I'm going to post. And then for a while, maybe they're doing other tattoos, but they're just not posting those. But the idea is that eventually they get into their lane and they only do the tattoos that they like to do. And it provides a steady income, and they just plateau, and that's it. And then when they see anything new that anyone's done, it's like, oh, well, I've never done that, so that can't be done. No, motherfucker, just say you don't know how. That's all you have to do. Just say you don't know how. And sometimes just say you're too lazy to do it. Like, that's perfectly fine. If you want to just make your living as a 9-to-5 tattooer, and just punch in, punch out, that's fine. There's a job for you. There's a lot of Pinterest tattoos to do, and someone's got to do them. That does not mean that nothing new can be achieved. You see these like checked out tattooers that were tattooing in the 90s, and probably a lot of them were never very good in the 90s too, where they're like, oh yeah, we tried all that in the 90s and it didn't work. It's like, no, you didn't try everything. And you know why I know that? Because I'm proof you didn't. I am proof you didn't. Some of these other guys that are coming out now, a lot of them have been inspired by the experimentation that's gone on here. Now they're taking it into their own directions and they're doing whatever the fuck they want with it. I remember arguing with some guy one time. He was like, oh, but you could never do a portrait over black. And I was like, yeah, a portrait's one of the easiest things you could do over black, actually. And it is. Like, a lot of people who don't know anything about tattooing assume that realism is the hardest thing to do. But when you know how to do it, it becomes the easiest thing to do. And it's one of the least time consuming as well. Especially if you're doing more like surrealistic or kind of illustrative, or no, not illustrative, sort of stylized realism where you don't need to put every grain of sand in there. You don't need to do every wrinkle in the face. It's impressionist. You're just implying things. You can fly through a fucking portrait in an hour. I had a portrait done on my leg once in 45 minutes. It was fucking this big because it's all just big mag work. Those same rules apply to black, tattooing on black, as long as you understand that you use black and white together. That's how Anthony Bennett could do this full sleeve in 8.5 hours. I don't have a hard time believing that. He probably could have done it in 4 hours on normal skin. But then it would be playing with negative space, and so whereas a white and black on black tattoo, you're packing everything. You have to. You may think, watching this, if you've watched this far in, like, what a self-righteous prick. Well, you know what? I earned the right to be, because I spent years being slagged for this, and now it's become fairly mainstream. It's going to become very mainstream. Like, with the success of Anthony Bennett and some of these other guys, Clayton Diaz comes to mind, there will be many more of these, and they will be observing the way that was done, and that was based on the way that this was done. So, and it doesn't even matter to me if everyone ever brings it back to this point. The victory for me is, I was right all along. It doesn't matter if I end up being the driving force for the mainstream of this either. Because I feel like this whole movement would have happened many years earlier if Lucky Diamond Rich and his checked out tattooer would have been forward with this information. If they would have shared more of how they got their results, you would have seen this movement 10 years ago. So when people bring up Lucky Diamond Rich to me as well, Lucky did it before you, Remy, it's like, no, he didn't. He didn't do anything before me. Here's what he did before me. He had a lot of tattoos before me. But because those guys didn't give any of this information freely, you don't have an Anthony Bennett going, thanks for the inspiration and thanks for showing this can work. Thanks for proving this can work. Now, because of this, you have him do it, and it will create an even bigger ripple, because what he's done is very palatable, and you can't say, oh, it's just on Remy and that guy gets tattooed 45 times a week. You can't say that anymore. That tool is out of the box now. You cannot say that anymore. So now you have to move to other frontiers, right? But eventually there's going to be enough of these guys that have come out and done this, and we're making them at the shop right now. Everyone here is doing these. There's going to be enough of this stuff out there that bullshit can't slide anymore. That won't work anymore. You're just going to have to face reality. As long as certain things are done, this work is a proven science. It's not experimental. It's not even close to experimental. It was at some point, but now it's a proven science. Anyway, I've got another session coming up in a few days here. I'm going to be having work done on my back. Once again, my back will be primarily black and white on black with color highlights. So I'm expecting to more or less zoom through this thing. And it's going to be a very, very striking piece. I'm looking forward to it. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.